Good evening and salutations, my GH fans. So, going into this episode, it was actually somewhat interesting. So, let's start with Lulu, since she's actually in the beginning of the story. Lulu interviews Cyrus, and at first Cyrus comes into the Metro Court, and he asks for a drink or whatever. Carly turns around and she's like, she has that look like, I'm pretty sure I told you, do not come back here, and here you are. She's like, I told you, we can't accommodate you. Oh, well, I'm meeting someone. And then Lulu comes, and Lulu's like, oh, you ready? Carly's just like, what the and even I was like, why would you bring Cyrus to the Metro Court knowing who Cyrus is and knowing that you're going to bring him to Carly's place? It made sense at the end. But, so they start the interview. Cyrus, tells Lulu about his plans for Port Charles, and he's going to be an upstanding citizen, and, because Lulu's like, well, what is your occupation? And Cyrus is like, investing, places, people, anything that turns a profit. And then, he tells her about his wrongfully conviction and, about how the PCPD and some people fabricated evidence and stuff like that against him. And, Lulu was like, sounds like you have a grudge. And Cyrus is like, no, I'm just going to sit there and just prove him wrong or whatever. So they talk for a little bit, back and forth, just, answering questions and stuff like that. And then Laura comes in, and, Cyrus, Laura says something to Cyrus, and Lulu's like, Mom. And, at the time, Cyrus is like, oh, that's your mother or whatever. And, Laura sits down. Cyrus is like, listen, he's like, did you know that your mother actually told me to not come here, that I should go back to Seattle? And she said that if I stay and if I should get, dealt with an unfortunate accident, that she would do everything in her power to find the person who killed me. And Lulu was like, well, you know what? She cares about all her constituents. And Cyrus was like, well, that's good, because I plan on, being a good public service, servant, and just being really helpful towards the community. And then he's like, I want to endorse you for your next run as mayor. And the whole time, Laura is just giving him the side eye, like, the hell? What are you doing by my daughter, pretty much? What are you doing in Port Charles? Why are you in this room? Like, what is going on? I don't like you. Kind of look the entire fucking time. And that's pretty much where her scene ends. So let's talk about Sonny real quick. First of all, Sonny walks in the house, and he walks in, he sits down. Now first I'm looking at this like, what the hell? Are we in a, did they redo the set or something like that? What is going on? Sonny sits down, Carly comes in, and Carly's like, how'd your meeting with Mike go? And, Sonny's like, well, you know what, it's not good. He was just tired and agitated a little bit. And, he talks about, that's when he was saying, like, listen, what you did with the place is nice as far as remodeling. And I'm like, now wonder why this whole thing just looks different. He was like, when it comes to certain things, remodeling whatever, fixing something or whatever, I can just pay for it. But with this illness, there's no amount of money, there's no amount of doctors that seems like they can do anything to stop this. So, they talk a little bit more. Jason walks in the room, and Sonny's like, well, how did Cyrus take the, me not showing up in the meeting? And, Jason's like, well, to be honest, he was a little pissed, but, nothing we can't handle. So they talk for a little bit. And then Sonny is like, he's never been the same since that ambush in New York. And, both Carly and Jason's like, well, maybe, but it wasn't like he was doing too good before. And Sonny's like, yeah, maybe, but because of that, because of that whole gun incident, Cyrus also blew our chances at trying to get Mike better treatment towards that new facility. So what it really comes down to is he is blaming Cyrus for Mike not being able to get the help he needs. I would sit there and say it's kind of 50-50, sort of a stretch, sort of not really. I mean, it's true. He didn't go to the appointment because of the gun incident, the shootout and everything like that. He wasn't accepted in there. It was too late to get him into the program. That is true. But, again, with Alzheimer's, you just don't know. You don't know if that really could have helped, if it really couldn't, because it was a trial. So, kind of 50-50 on really taking Sonny, side on that. So, let's go to Neil and Alexis. So, Alexis sitting down, Neil walks into the room. First of all, he looks like disheveled as shit. Like, you haven't shaved in a while. Like, the hell is going on with you? So Neil sits down and, they banter for a little bit, and then Neil's like, listen, he's pretty much in there saying, like, I don't work at GH anymore. The review board has taken my license or suspended my license or whatever. And, Neil's like, have you heard anything from, the bar association? Alexis like, no, I haven't heard anything yet, but I'm pretty, like, they'll be upset that I lied under oath, but I'm not going to get in trouble for, like, having relations with you. So they sit down and whatever, and they talk, and, they're like, let's see, they talk about possibly exploring this new relationship of theirs now that there's nothing really in the way to stop them. And, they talk a little bit more, and then I don't know who brings up, I can't remember who brought up the drinking part, but, Neil kind of blames himself a little bit, because he's like, I can't remember who fucking started that, and I just finished watching the episode, but Alexis was like, listen, I was, because I was drinking and stuff like that, and this had nothing to do with Sam, this was stuff that was going on before, and then I think that's when Neil's like, you mean stuff like me kind of stuff? And so Neil's like, listen, if you didn't actually have to have relations with me and stuff like that and sleep with me and do all this other stuff, you probably wouldn't have felt bad enough to where you actually had to drink. Like Sam may have been like the spark, but it might not actually been anything there if it wasn't for Neil, being with her. So Alexis like, are you mad at me or are you? And Neil's like, both. And that's pretty much where that scene ends off. So, Neil is kind of blaming himself. I don't understand how you can actually blame Alexis, but Neil blames himself and Alexis for, Alexis drinking. So, let's go to Molly and TJ. Because Molly is feeling guilty. Capital G. So, can't remember his name. TJ is, at the hospital. He's talking to, I don't remember that guy's name. Dubois? I think that's his last name. They don't show him enough, so I honestly tell you the truth, I don't really remember. But he's talking to that nurse. And, he's like doing paperwork or whatever. Molly walks over. Molly's like, hey, listen, just make sure you're good, you're able to go back to work, don't come back too soon, stuff like that. TJ's talking about his, like, oh, well, just so excited about our domestic partnership, because apparently that's a thing. I know it's a real thing, but anyway, so he says that, and then Molly's like, hey, listen, I'm just about to sit there and head to Charlie's to talk to my sisters about, us, like, that domestic partnership thing and just moving in and being more serious and stuff like that. So, when they talk about that, you have Sam and Kristina, because honestly, tell you the truth, I haven't seen her in a while. So they talk a little bit, and Sam's like, listen. Well, Sam comes over, and Sam, in the beginning of the intro, or whatever, Sam walks into the bar, and he's like, hey, she's like, hey, listen, I haven't seen you in a while, and I want to check up on how you were doing because I was so busy with Molly. I just kind of neglected you and stuff. And Kristina's like, well, I'm good. I actually tell you the truth, I'm a lot better because Julian gave me a raise for like no reason, which works out for me. Sam's like, well, there's a reason. Julian pretty much fucked up. Then he explains the whole thing about, then she explains the whole thing about the hospital and outing her and Neil and stuff like that. And surprisingly, Kristina didn't get that upset. I mean, mostly because Sam was like, well, she's alright, she's doing okay, she's a fighter and stuff like that. But I expected her to get a more of a reaction. So you talk a little bit, and then one second. Brando, I can't believe I keep fucking forgetting his name. Brando walks in the bar, and he's like, I call for an order, and then he says Brando Corbin, and they both look and it's like, oh, you mean like as in Mike Corbin and stuff like that? And I think Kristina's like, oh, well, you're sort of my cousin. So wouldn't that make okay, Molly's not a cousin, never mind. So, they're like, oh, we never got to meet, that's the first time meeting, stuff like that. And then, somehow, Brando remembers that Sam saved Dev from Shiloh, and he was like, wow, that's a great job, way to go and stuff like that. And then they talk about the cult thing or whatever, like Sam's like, he was a cult leader, and Brando's like, oh, well, who is stupid enough to fall for a dumb cult? And I was like, ooh, that was kind of bad, because then Kristina just started looking, and she felt bad, and then she walks off, and Brando's like, well, did I say something? Sam explains the whole DOD thing or whatever. They go through flashbacks. There was quite a few amount of flashbacks in this episode that I was like, we just run out of time here, guys. What's good? And then Brando's like, oh shit, my bad, I didn't know, whatever. Kristina, walks back towards him in this like very bitchy walk or whatever. It was like, here, here's your order, you already paid for it, you good? Alright, bye. And Brando's like, yo, listen, my bad, I didn't know, I'm sorry. Listen, if you ever need a repair, I can give you a discount. And then he walks off. Now, Molly left the hospital to go talk to her sisters, and then she sees Brando, then, surprise, surprise, another flashback of them, being together. So, she's like, oh shit, fuck, what the hell is he doing here? Then, Brando walks out. Sam says something bitchy like, oh, well, he's just a jerk with, too much opinions or whatever. I was like, Sam? Just keep in mind, a lot of people can sit there and call you some 4-letter words. Might want to just dial it down a bit. I get it, she was being protective of her sister, but it's not like she hasn't slipped and said something stupid before once or twice or more. So as Brando walks out, Molly's like, the hell are you doing here? Brando's like, yo, I'm just coming to get something to eat. Like, and Sam was like, you were sitting there talking to Molly was like, you were sitting there talking to my sisters. Brando's like, because I know they're your sisters, right? Like, I think we just both had that clueless look, like, was she supposed to know that he was talking to your sisters? Like, she freaked the fuck out. And I was like, he doesn't know. So he was surprised or whatever. And I'm like, listen, you can't keep treating him like he's your dirty little secret. Because if the roles were reversed, I'm pretty sure you'd be sitting there calling him male chauvinist and all those other SJW words that y'all fucking people use. So you might want to just tone it down a little bit. You know, you talk about equality and shit. All right, that is going to end that rant. Let's see what else we got going on. One second. Okay. Two more things. So Curtis and Jordan was sitting there talking. Jordan, because Mac walked into the room, Mac was like, listen, we're gonna find who did this, okay? We are not going to rest until we find who did this. And Jordan probably in their head is like, yo, you don't have to try so hard. I mean, if you can't find him, I understand, and Mac's like, no. We'll find him. Don't worry, we'll search high and low, we'll find him. And so Mac walks out the room. Jordan's like, shit. Because Jordan's like, listen, if Mac finds out the truth and finds out that the ties to Cyrus, this whole thing, this whole cover up and everything, and TJ's life and my life and Curtis' life can all be in jeopardy. So she's like, shit. So her idea is to try to go to the feds. Just throw herself in the sword, give him everything. Curtis is like, no, that's not going to work because one, you'll be behind bars and you're a cop. Two, it's not going to serve any purpose because Cyrus is really good at covering his tracks. So most likely they're not going to find anything, and then Cyrus is going to be pissed off and he's going to be sitting there thinking of ways to sit there and hurt you. You don't want that. TJ doesn't want that, and Curtis doesn't want that. So that's not a good idea. And they go and they talk about that back and forth for like a good maybe 7-10 minutes, give or take. At the end, Jordan's like, yeah, you're right. Now Mac is talking to TJ. And my whole thing is like, I'm like, okay, I know Mac has been in the game a lot longer than Chase, but I'm just surprised that Chase asked questions and got nowhere. And I know memory or whatever, works better over time sometimes. But Mac asked questions and TJ started to remember some stuff. TJ remembered that what did he remember? He remembered after he was in a van, after he was, I guess, in a van because he felt like there was a lot of space. So he must have felt like he was in a van or whatever. And then he heard, he was like, the van made a couple of lefts and he heard a train. And, that kind of narrowed down the search as far as where was TJ abducted. Mac was sitting there asking. And so TJ pretty much kind of helped out a lot in the case, which was not good. And at one point before they kind of closed out Jordan and Curtis scene, Jordan was like, well, what if he does remember? Maybe that'd be a good thing. And then Curtis was like, but you just said it wasn't a good thing. If you don't want to remember, right? You said that. So honestly, to tell you the truth, I almost felt like that scene kind of went nowhere. But yeah, TJ remembers a lot more than he thought. And, Mac was the person that kind of pulled it out of him. I'm not surprised that Chase didn't because Mac has been a cop longer. So it just makes sense. One more second. I just want to make sure. I think one other thing, besides the fact that Sonny was sitting there talking to Carly about Mike's condition and him blaming Cyrus for it. They were sitting there, Liz was sitting there, no, Sonny was sitting there saying that Liz suggested a DNR, and that's probably among the worst things you could sit there and hear. Somebody sit there and tell you about their loved one being in the hospital or sick or whatever. And Carly's like, well, what do you think of that? And Sonny was like, yeah, we're not there. We're not at that stage yet. And then Sonny said that Liz suggested not not hospice, but something else that was close to it. Um, better living or something. It's something. It's not hospice, but it's something like it. Liz suggested that, and Carly was like, well, no. Jason was like, do you think that's a good idea? Because Liz is like the best as far as her recommendations go. She's a pretty damn good nurse, and if she says something, she gives you a suggestion, it's probably worth checking out. And Sonny was not really ready for that. He was just like, I don't feel like we're there yet. When I was feeding Mike, we were talking a little bit, and he was just like, my dad's still in there somewhere. So pretty much the stuff that Liz suggested as far as not hospice, but like better care or something like that. I guess it's a separate team that comes to Turning Woods to really just kind of help Mike and stuff like that more out and just be more of a buffer, so that way Sonny doesn't have to worry and it doesn't stress Mike out because maybe the people at Turning Woods can't exactly help him at that stage of his sickness. So, the point is, Sonny is just not ready to just fully let go, which I don't blame him. But just the stuff that Liz pretty much said, he just wasn't ready to hear it. So, it was a nice scene yesterday, but it didn't really do much good because Sonny just wasn't ready to hear it. So, I don't want to sit there and say it was a waste of time, but... Anyway, that's gonna do it for this. Yeah, that's gonna do it for this recap of GH. Now tomorrow, they're doing Flashback Fridays, and I'm curious. So I'll sit there and talk a little bit about it just to kind of give people a rundown of what the episode is, if it was a good episode or just something from like maybe 4 months ago. I mean, these flashbacks again aren't really flashbacks. They're not. Anyway, that's gonna do it. So have a good day, good night, depending on when you're watching this. Be safe, and as always, I will catch you in the next recap.